floor is yours. Okay, so thank you for all, thank you for your kind organization and your warm welcome here. As Roberto, I'm not so able to speak in French, even though I understand this language. That's why we're going to talk about my topic in English, and as you can find on the slide, I change just a little bit a part of my title because I modify the perspective according to which we will discuss about the relationship clearly about between the religion and sustainable development, because we will adopt an environmental law perspective, so just a type of environment of public law. So I think that our starting point could be the United Nations 2030 agenda, and as all we know very well, it represents an effort of the United Nations model to reach and to change the perspective of our economical development in order to make our development much more respectful of the environment and of the social requested. And we know very well too that these 17 goals are interrelated, one of them, because it is clear that if we categorize them, we should find the three pillars of the sustainable development, and if we try to reach one of them, we hope, we should also reach others. And it is interesting because if we think about it, a lot of them are related to the food. Instead, sustainability concerns the right to food, but the right to food doesn't mean zero hungry in general, because it means on the one hand the right of to have natural food, so a food doesn't modified with chemicals products, but at the same time it means to have an healthy food, and as all we know, like I found this interesting paper online, and in the richest country, poor people are fat. They have a low and a high degree of obesity, of course, because they are used to eat ultra elaborated food. That means food quite cheap. Now let's think about, for instance, the fast food hamburger. So it is clear that the natural food and healthy food has important positive aspect, more in general, to the environment. They should have a good impact on the environment. And it is clear if we think about the climate change, like the avocados from Chile examples show very well. According to this article of The Guardian, as we know, the avocados need a lot of water, but if we use this kind of water for the avocado, we should not use to drink for people. So they should have a draining problem, and this is exactly what happened, what is still happened nowadays in Chile. So if we talk about the right to food, the natural food, healthy food, the sustainable food, we should also make some consideration about the relationship between the food as a cultural heritage and the food as a product of globalization. Because, sorry for that, I'm Italian, but if we think about the pizza, Pizzeria da Michele in Naples, so for us is the greatest part of the gastronomic culture of our country. But if we imagine the pizza as a product of globalization, unfortunately, we find the Hawaiian pizza. So it is clear that for Italians, people like me, and probably, I hope, like you, is not a good point. So don't try it at home, also because if you eat this kind of pizza, an Italian grandmother should die. So we love our grandmother, so don't kill our grandmother, please. So, by the way, if we focus on the globalization, it is clear that we should affect the principle of sustainability. And I found online also these images that it's quite evident about the pears grown in Argentina, packed in Thailand, and in our case sold in the United States. So the globalization affected about the food affected the environmental protection. Or let's think, for instance, about the intensive breeding of pigs, of chickens, stuff like that. And as all we know, after the COVID crisis, the pandemic 19, by COVID-19, we should adopt a perspective of One Health, in which there is an important correlation between the environmental health, the human health, and the animal ones. So here you can find some interesting references about the One Health approach, developed of course in the United Nations context, and it is also evident during the COVID-19 from the spillover, zoonotic spillover effect. So we should act to protect the environments, also to protect our health. By the way, as Ludwig Feuerbach wrote, we are what we eat. So, of course, food is a part of our culture, but at the same time, food should represent our identity. And if it is right, it is also correct that the food could also represent the religious identity. I try to categorize some obligations, some prescription about the food that I found in the three main monotheistic religions. And more or less we should list four big prescriptions. So the first one is concerned about the animals allowed for the human consumption, and the human and animals not allowed. No, for instance, in Hebraism, is not allowed the pork meat, is not allowed the horse meat and the rabbit one. In Islam, is not allowed the pork meat, the horse meat, and of course alcoholic beverages. In the Catholic in the Catholic religion, we don't have this kind of restriction. At the same time, we don't have specific imposition about the animal slaughter methodology. On contrary, in the Hebraism and Islam, there are some prescription about this point. But in general, also other prescriptions concern the food preparation methodologies and the timing of food consumption. Let's think, for instance, of course, Ramadan about the Islam, but also in the Catholic religion, we should have we have the Quaresima, and probably you should know probably that the word carnevale derives from the Latin word carnem levare, the period in which you should not eat meat. So, what can we obtain from these four kind of prescription? Moderation from food excessive, balancing in consumption, so no wastages more or less is the reason, and the same time as the prohibition of alcohol underlined very well, the psycho and physical well-being is crucial. And of course, because we are talking about the relationship between religion and sustainable development, I found an interesting paper written by some Italian scholars in which they try to analyze the impact of the food prescription, religious food prescription, using the life cycle assessment, in particular about the meat consumption. So as we can see from this table, if we analyze the kilograms per capita in a year, we should obtain that the most impacted religious is Hebraism, because in the Hebraism, of course, there are some prohibition, no? As I told you before, the pork meat, etc. But we obtain more or less 90 kilos of meat per capita per year, and more or less less than half from the Islamic religion, and less about the Catholic. This is interesting because if we have this kind of data, we should calculate the carbon footprint, so the impact about the production of CO2 that we should obtain from the consumption of the meat. And if we try to make a final consideration about this, the interpretation of this data, we should obtain that, as I told before, the religion that has the biggest impact is the Hebraism, because is quite high, the consumption of beef meat, and the beef clearly is the most impacted kind of production, because they need a lot of water, they need a lot of animal farine and this kind of food, animal food. And also, if we compare with the pork, or if we compare with poultry, we can kill a beef after a lot of years, if we compare with the long life of a poultry, of a chicken. So clearly these are data, so data should be interpreted in a lot of ways, but we should highlight some final conclusion about this little consideration. The first one is that religious nutrition should have could be very interesting about the impact on the environment, because it is clear it represents a relationship between, on the one hand, human and divine, and the other hand, human and human, so individual and individual relationship. In this consideration, there is a higher perceiveness, because, of course, this kind of prescription derives from God. So, at the same time, it is evident we should obtain a positive aspect, even we are not subjected to this prescription. In fact, religious nutrition could have an essential recovery in an ethical and environmental sense, because everything is the ratio, the rationale of this prescription is not about, at the end of the day, what is allowed and what is not allowed, but they try to teach us a moderation in the consummation of natural resources. So we should consume food with respect, and not in a consumistic way, and that unfortunately it is exactly our kind of consumistic life. So these are two of the biggest, the more important references I found, and I should it could be right in a properly way. So thank you for your attention.